Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning, and let's welcome you to a Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Thursday, you know what that means, folks. Our good friend Brent Beaird will be talking college football. Second portion of the show is the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup, which we're just going to have Mike Ridaught, who covers high school sports, give us a breakdown. Volleyball is over, and then we'll talk high school football playoffs. But let's get straight to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by our good friend out of Jacksonville, the Heisman Trophy voter, not the winner that I called him one time, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing well. As a matter of fact, we do have an update on that, and this came across the ESPN ticker on Saturday night, that the actual announcement is going to be like now January the 5th, somewhere in there, and then the votes will be in, I believe it's December 24th or something like that. I may be off a little bit on the dates, but the point I want to make for the listeners is, as everything else, it will be much later than it normally is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as things are going right now, we'll talk about it here in a minute, man, a lot of stuff could be on the line in Atlanta, Georgia on December the 19th, not just an SEC title or a spot in the 14 playoff, but maybe a Heisman Trophy. Brent, before we get into the SEC, let's talk about a couple of these group of five schools that are having really good years, like Cincinnati, Liberty. Hugh Freeze gets an extension. Do you think he still may end up leaving this year, or do you think he's going to wait a couple of years?
I still think there's a chance that he may wait. I mean, they're paying Hugh about like 3.5, frankly, and they have sunk a lot of money into that school. They really gave him another chance to resurrect his career. So I think a lot of that's going to be how soon does he want to make a move. And the reality of this, Shane, think about this, South Carolina's open now. But if you wait a bit, is Tennessee going to be open? Is Auburn going to be open, say this time next year? So if he doesn't go to South Carolina, he could really wait a little bit, and they have another really good year, which they probably will. Malik Willis, the former Auburn quarterback, is a Liberty quarterback. He can almost pick and choose his jobs. Now, there will be a sit-down with Greg Sankey to probably baptize, homogenize, and pasteurize him before he gets back into the league again. But Hugh Freeze being very much talked about for other jobs.
Yeah, so let's just stick with South Carolina just for a minute, even though we're not talking about the SEC right now. Who, in your mind, do you think they're going to try to go after? I mean, obviously, Hugh Freeze's name's out there. There's been some talk. Maybe Brian Johnson gets a look. I don't know if South Carolina's going to hire someone that hasn't had any head coaching experience. Maybe I'm wrong. But what do you think? Where do you think the Gamecocks go?
Well, I'll throw some names at you real quick that I've heard from other contacts and some coaches. Coastal Carolina, Jamie Chadwell, I'm curious if you know him, has done real well.
He knows how to coach. I know that.
Yeah, he does, don't he, Shane? And I'll tell you another guy who's been really impressive is Billy Napier at Louisiana. He was on the Alabama staff, but he's done a good job there. And see, here's the thing with Napier and guys like that, and this is the reason I bring up Bill Clark at UAB and similar coaches. And now, you can get a guy to come in and be a flash in the pan for 2 or 3 years, or you can bring a guy in and he can develop a program that lasts 5 to 10 to 15 years. And I think that's where they need to go. And a guy like Billy Napier could do that. Now, Steve Sarkisian's names have been mentioned, but I could see him also waiting a little bit. And Shane Beamer of Oklahoma, I've been told that could get in there too. They could go a lot of different ways, but by making the announcement the way they did, Shane, doesn't it give them a little bit more time to work on this stuff?
Yeah, and you mentioned Shane Beamer. I forgot. He was on Coach Spurrier's coaching staff
right
when Coach was there, so he has some contacts there. The Billy Napier name or him as the head coach there, it doesn't surprise me, but I think he's a very good coach. He's done a great job at Louisiana Lafayette. But when I watch them play, they are so run oriented, Brent. I just don't. Now I don't know if he'd change his style if he becomes a head coach in the SEC. But I just feel like to win today in college football, with the way the rules have changed, the athletes are out there, you've got to throw the football. And they run the heck out of it at Louisiana, and I just don't know if that would work at South Carolina.
And that's why I know Brent Venable's name's been mentioned several times from Clemson, and that doesn't mean you can't get a really good offensive coordinator. But I'm with you right now. You're the guys who are going to get the jobs immediately in this day and age of 7-on-7 football that we're playing, or going to be offensive guys, which is why Steve Sarkisian in Alabama is going to have a real decision to make at some point also. But no, that says a lot, because that's just kind of where we are in football.
Yeah, we got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. And it comes from Scott. If these things will quit popping up on my computer. Scott says, do you think that South Carolina may go after Tony Elliott, who's the offensive coordinator at Clemson?
Well, that's been mentioned too, as a matter of fact. And Dabo, to his credit, he likes when he doesn't like him to leave, but he appreciates them getting jobs. So, yes, his name's been mentioned too. And look, anybody who's been associated with Trevor Lawrence and that offense and ETN has got to get a look, don't they, Shane?
Absolutely. And John also mentions here, should they look at Matt Campbell from Iowa State, who does a tremendous job. But if a guy like him, he's got a chance to win the Big 12 championship.
Yes.
I don't know if he wants to get in the mix with all these powerhouses in the SEC.
Well, I'll say this. I love Matt Campbell, and I'm sure you have a healthy respect for him, too, for what he's done there. They win big games, and I think they're fairly balanced on offense. He is going to get a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, Matt Campbell is another one of these guys that we've talked about that is a program builder. And he may just want to stay out there. And Shane makes a really good point, because right now, with the mediocrity that Texas is in, and Oklahoma is always going to be there, but Iowa State, Matt Campbell can make some noise there for years to come.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Brent, let's talk about some of the games this weekend before we get into the SEC. It's kind of a big weekend in the Big Ten, believe it or not. You got Ohio State playing Indiana. Northwestern is playing. Gosh, I forgot who they're playing. But what are your thoughts about the Big Ten?
Well, the interesting thing about the Big Ten is the teams that are doing well are not exactly who we thought they would be. I mean, Indiana's 4-0 versus Ohio State that's 3-0. Tom Allen has done a tremendous job at Indiana. This is a team that Tennessee beat in the Gator Bowl last year. Tom Allen, if you want to see something that really tugs at your heartstrings, and you can appreciate this, Shane, was Tom Allen's son got hurt last week, out for the season. His press conference afterwards was amazing. Wisconsin's 2-0. They play Northwestern at 4-0. And again, it's hard to mention the Big Ten without mentioning that Michigan is 1-3 for the first time since 1967. And also, Penn State is really struggling this year too. Since 2000, this is amazing. Penn State has had 2 games which it gained 450 yards and allowed fewer than 300, and lost both of them. And that was this year against Indiana and Nebraska. Shane, that's hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And you bring up Indiana. Their story is outstanding. And what's interesting, Brent? It goes to show you how important the quarterback position is.
Yep.
Because Indiana, think about this. their former starting quarterback, who got beat out by Michael Penix Jr., has transferred to Northwestern, has them undefeated and playing the best offense Northwestern's ever had. So think about the University of Indiana has two quarterbacks that are both undefeated, playing at two different schools, and other powerhouses in the Big Ten have quarterbacks that can't play dead in the Western. I mean, there's some bad ones out there. So Indiana's doing a tremendous job.
Defensively, they're very good. They've allowed 73 total yards rushing against Michigan and Michigan State. They lead the Big Ten in sacks, second in tackles for loss. So it will be. I think Ohio State will win, but they could give Justin Fields a lot of problems.
They could. Back to South Carolina. We just got a text on the Titan More text line. It came from Jerry. Jerry wants to know: would Steve Spurrier Jr. be a possible candidate for South Carolina?
I think at this point you can't rule anything out. I'll say this: I haven't heard his name with the job a lot. But at this point, it's so early in the process. And Shane, you know how this stuff works. You've got agents who are trying to get their names involved. That Junior could be involved with this, and I will be curious. They may want a guy who's just got more head coaching experience, but his name could very well pop up.
Yeah, at Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with our good friend Brent Beaird, you can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird right here on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. All right, Brent. So let's talk recruiting. The rules, they've expanded some stuff until April. Explain to our listeners what all that means.
Well, the thing they've done is, once again, they've expanded the dead period is what it amounts to, which really means that there are no real official visits where players come in. They meet with coaches. They can meet with their parents, or coaches are not able to go out on the road again. So, look, the amazing thing about this is, we're virtually going to have almost a year to where, or certainly several months, to where there's really no face-to-face contact. Now, again, we've got Zoom. I understand parents now are going to be included more on Zoom, but Shane, it's an unprecedented time in recruiting. And I think the other important thing is we're still having the early signing period in mid-December. That has not changed unless something happens on that very quickly. So once again, even as limited as is, we're going to have an early signing period in December, and then we will have the later signing period at its usual time, the first Wednesday in February.
We got a Facebook Live question here for you, Brent, brought to you by Melvin Law, the only official law firm partner of your mighty Florida Gators. It comes from Scott. He says, do you think Muschamp ends up at Bama in some sort? I think he's going to be an analyst either at Alabama or at Georgia. What are your thoughts?
I think that's very possible. I mean, look, Florida I think his money, and you correct me on this if you know differently, but I think Florida has paid him. Now, obviously, South Carolina will. He's going to get $13 to $14 million. I mean, he could take some time off. I'm not sure Will's just a ball coach, and he wants to coach. And Shane, look, wherever he goes, and the coordinator situations are much different now. I think he's got one or two or three choices. He could either sit out next year, or he could be a coordinator somewhere. And get this now, Will could make 2 to 2.5 easily. If he couldn't make 3, that's how the market's changed. Although COVID could really put a halt to some of the money, or what he could do is he could end up going to a Southern Miss type school and digging in and being there for a long time. Bama, Georgia's possibilities. Now, Golding in Alabama has got a lot of criticism, but they've improved defensively. And Georgia, frankly, besides the injuries, still has maybe the best defense in the league. So I don't see them making a change in that situation unless someone just brings him in as a assistant head coach, and he has some multiple positions. But safe to say, he's got a lot of friends, as you know, Shane, and Will won't be without a job if he wants one very long, will he?
No, I agree 100% with that. Brent, I guess the marquee game in the SEC this week would be Tennessee at Auburn. I'm not sure about either one of these teams. Is this like a must-win for Jeremy Pruitt, you think? And maybe for Gus. I mean, Gus can't lose to Tennessee either.
And he did lose to them a couple of years ago, if you remember, in that game. And in that game, Garantano, the Tennessee quarterback, may have had the game of his life, frankly. But Garantano in the last 3 games, 50% passing, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and I think he has 3 fumbles along with that too. Now, obviously, Auburn did not play last week because of the Mississippi State game being postponed. Obviously, a lot of teams didn't play last week. Auburn could clinch a non-losing season if they win this game. With that, they would give them 5 wins. But offensively, 200 yards rushing and passing, or at least close to that in the last 3 games. Tank Bigsby is going to be the key to this game. Can Tennessee tackle him? At this point, their defense with Kevin Steele, 22 points a game, that's still very good. Believe it or not, Jeremy Pruitt is an assistant and a head coach, is 8-3 versus Gus Malzahn. So no, you're right. It's a crucial game for both teams. I don't think that regardless with the Tennessee season that Jeremy Pruitt gets fired this year. Phil Fulmer has too much power as AD. And by the way, Fulmer just got very quietly got an extension on his contract the other day. But Fulmer will protect him this year, and he'll be back next year. But that seat will be pretty warm going into 2021.
No doubt about it. Brent, Alabama, it seems like they're going through that span how Florida did. It's been a while since they've played. And I told you before the show, I spoke to the Huntsville quarterback club up in Alabama the other night. And one of the questions, they asked, it was full of Alabama folks, a few Auburn people scattered in there. But they asked me, can Alabama beat Florida? I was like, usually it's the other way around. Can the Gators beat Alabama? But they were a little concerned. Talk a little bit about Alabama against Kentucky. I think this is going to be a rout.
Well, here's the real problem for Alabama in this game. If you remember, before Georgia played Florida, they played Kentucky, and Kentucky basically beat them up, and they're still struggling with that today. So that's the thing Alabama's got to be aware of. They've won 9 straight in the series. They obviously haven't played a whole lot. Listen, Bama, to your point, Bama hadn't played in 14 days when they kick off. That's the first time that's happened since 1893.
Wow.
So, but against Vandy, and it was Vandy, Kentucky played well. Terry Wilson played much better. I'm curious what you think of this Chris Rodriguez at running back. He's been pretty impressive so far, and we know their defense is good. I'm with you. I think Bama wins comfortably, but the danger here is not to lose multiple starters because, believe it or not, next week's Thanksgiving, and that means the Iron Bowl is Saturday.
Yes. The Gators travel to Nashville, play a winless Vanderbilt team. This game could get ugly. However, we've had troubles playing in Nashville at times. But this Florida offense, Brent, you've been covering the Gators for a long time, and people have asked me everywhere I speak, is this the greatest offense Florida's ever had? And gosh, you got to think it is compared to maybe the 96 team with Werfel, maybe 1 or 2 of Tebow's teams, but they're unstoppable right now.
Yeah, they really are. They remind me of the teams you were on with Coach Spurrier. Is really the first thing that comes to mind. But and I'm curious if this caught your attention like it did mine. Trask is 11 touchdowns behind Danny Werfel's season record of 39.
Yeah, I mean, what he's doing is ridiculous.
It is, isn't it? And Shane, did you ever think that record would be broken?
Never, never. And I mean, and to throw for what, minimum 4 touchdowns every game. You know, back
Yes.
when I played, if you
Yes.
threw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game, you were breaking school records left and right. And it's mind-boggling. And he's playing at an extremely high level. He's got really good players around him, but I don't think enough credit is being given to Dan Mullen and Brian Johnson for the game plans and how they're attacking the weakness of these defenses, because guys are open, and that goes back to coaching.
It does. I don't know if anybody is scheming as well as they are right now. I mean, 9 players caught passes in the game, different ones. And look, I remember in the Georgia game, 10 different players caught passes, and that was in the first half. Kyle Pitts is still out for this game, but some of these other tight ends have really stepped up, which I think has been quite impressive. So, and they will continue that streak against a Vanderbilt team that is 0-6 and in a 10-game SEC losing streak.
Yes, they're not very good. Brent, I want to ask you this, because I've been trying to think back. When you look at the season that Mac Jones is having, that Trask is having, and then you got to throw Matt Corral from Ole Miss, what he's doing. I think his numbers are staggering. Now, he's not on a great team like Trask and Mac Jones, but have you ever seen in the SEC or maybe any conference 3 quarterbacks doing what those 3 kids are doing?
No. Listen, it's absolutely unprecedented for what you and I grew up with in this league of a dominant running game, solid defense and kicking game, and you threw if you got in trouble on third down. Yes, I mean it absolutely is frankly unprecedented. And look, the teams that you just mentioned are the teams that, and again, Ole Miss, because of their defense, it's not a championship team, but when Lane Kiffin gets a defense and better players, you can look at and see where they're going to be. But I would say that these 3 quarterbacks, and there are others in the league, but particularly these 3 have played as well as anybody has, and involving multiple receivers. And Shane, they're getting the yards they're getting in one game is what we used to see other quarterbacks gain in what, Shane? Half a season, maybe?
Yeah. There's no question. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, and not just in the SEC. I mean, if you watch North Carolina and Wake Forest the other day, both quarterbacks, one threw for like 600 yards, the other one threw for 500, and both teams combined had almost 1,500 yards of offense. It's crazy. Brent, give us a rundown what's going on in Baton Rouge with LSU.
Well, listen, it's a mess. I mean, on the field, Miles Brennan's out for the year. So at this point, they're going with TJ Finley, and they've got they really haven't done much at all. I mean, offensively, it's just the opposite of what we were talking about. 1,692 yards. They're 124 out of 200. And they've just struggled in every area. They've got a good Arkansas team coming in. The real problem with LSU right now is, frankly, the Title IX investigation. If people haven't seen this, Shane, this is Baylor-like as far as the number of football players who are involved and have not been disciplined with this. And look, I'm not going to make predictions on where it's going to go, but this does not look good for Ed Orgeron at all. And I'm not saying he will, but this could be look, number one, this should never be happening to anyone, but particularly the co-eds at LSU. But there could be a lot of losses and jobs over this. Frankly, when all this comes out, LSU's hired a independent firm to do an investigation for them. But unfortunately, Shane, that this thing has a lot of tentacles that could affect LSU for the next several years.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. We just got a text from the Titan Tomorrow text line from our good friend Daryl. He wants to know, Shane, could you ask Brent, does he think anybody else loses their job this year in the SEC?
The only guy who maybe would be Derek Mason at Vanderbilt. And again, you really never know what Vanderbilt's going to do with that administration. I mean, I like Mason, but at some point, I mean, they're 0-6 right now. They may not win a game. So how can you get excitement if you're 0-10? But I think pretty much the rest of the guys come back. I mean, Malzahn, they think he's going to have a much better year next year. They'll probably lose to Vandy and A&M, Alabama and A&M, which means they'll have 4 losses. But I still think he'll be back. I think Pruitt will be back at Tennessee, and unless someone just makes a move like a Stoops at Kentucky, going to another job. I mean, that's a good question, Daryl. I don't. Shane, I don't think anyone else will lose their job because of COVID and because of how strange the season is. Do you?
No, I agree with that. I mean, I was surprised that Muschamp got fired because, like you said, of COVID and the money they owe him. But I guess they felt like they had to do it. Brent, got any other nuggets for us?
Well, I think also you've got, and again, and I know this is not an SEC, but I want to point this out. Florida State plays Clemson, and we know how that's going to be. But I thought this is an amazing stat. FSU is the youngest team in America. They have 84 freshmen and sophomores. That's 73% of the team. They have a total of 13 seniors on this team. And by the way, Chuba Purdy, now their quarterbacks have been shelved for the year. The main thing FSU can do right now is just rebuild for next year. That they've gotten a lot of the guys, because of attrition, have left the roster. But that's kind of the stat of the week for me. It really shows you how young they are, doesn't it, Shane, and how far they've got to go.
Yeah, they have a long ways to go. You know, what was interesting to me is Clemson's like a 35-point favorite in Tallahassee. The Gators are 31-point favorites at Vandy. I wonder if FSU and Vandy played, who would be favored?
That's a really good question. And listen, but by the way, Georgia hosts Mississippi State. Now, we're hearing, we heard this last night, that J.T. Daniels may be your starting quarterback at Georgia. And Carson Beck from Jacksonville, hopefully he will get a little bit of time too. But look, one thing you've said constantly this year, and this backs it up, and Georgia's a great example of this, the teams that are struggling at quarterback are the ones that have not reached their potential. Now, they're getting some of their walking wounded back, like George Pickens against the receiver against Mississippi State. But Shane, Kirby in that quarterback situation, frankly, over the last several years, continues to hold them back.
No doubt about it. Last thing, Brent, I'm going to put you on the spot. It is, November the 19th. Brent Beaird is filling out his Heisman Trophy ballot today. How you got it listed?
Listen to me. It's a coin flip between Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. As a matter of fact, I've got an interview with the Gator website about this coming up, but those are my top two, and it will be that coin flip with them. But and again, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, those guys. I mean, Fields had just started. Lawrence has been out for 2 games. So the jury is really out with them. Obviously, Wilson at BYU is probably going to be on my top 5 in order to go to New York. But and it's a quarterback time, except maybe for Najee Harris in Alabama. But this may be and it's probably going to be all quarterbacks. But this may be the best group of quarterbacks as far as eye-popping numbers, Shane, that we have seen for the Heisman race in a long, long time.
No doubt about it. It's crazy, the numbers they're putting up. Well, Brent, be safe, my man. We'll talk to you next Thursday. We appreciate you joining the program.
Shane, can't wait. Take care, pal. Thanks.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. You can follow him and all his good stuff on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Comfort Temp. At Comfort Temp, comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. This month, get a free annual maintenance plan with every residential duct cleaning purchase, which is a $199 value. Our service department is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your convenience. Our comfort day, this day in sports. And back in just a few years ago, 2018, the LA Rams beat the Chiefs 54-51 at the LA Memorial Coliseum, the third highest scoring game in NFL history. First time two teams score 50 points in the same game. Pat Mahomes, 6 touchdown passes for the Chiefs, was the most on a Monday Night Football game. So that's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Tim. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. I want to thank Brent. We're going to go to a break here in just a minute. I want to remind everybody we're going to have the head ball coach, Stephen Orr Spurrier, will be joining us tomorrow on the program, as well as our Peachland Dentistry picks with JC. We're going to take our first time out of the program. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mike Ridaught from the Prep Zone on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup.
This is Shane Matthews. Thank you for listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. You can also check me out on Inside the Huddle with Steve Russell and the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. Tune in every Tuesday during football season on WRUF 98.1 FM, 8:50 a.m. at 10 o'clock in the morning, or find us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Tim, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Ribs, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parrish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Radware for all your promotional needs, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button, or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Point's where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Skechers, Sushi Hana, and coming spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. We're now going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by our good friend from the PrepZone.com, Mike Ridaught, here on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good, Shane. Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well. I appreciate you joining us. Before we get into, because high school football is still going on, I'm pretty sure high school volleyball, I had Santa Fe on, I've had Newberry, they played for the state title, obviously fell once again to Sneads, who is a powerhouse. Just talk a little bit about the volleyball season.
Yeah, for the area, I really felt like we were going to have a state champion. I thought that Newberry High School, which had beaten the 7-time defending state champion Sneads Pirates, now the 8-time defending state champions, who actually set an FHSA record for 8 consecutive state titles. I really felt like they were going to be able to bring home a state championship because they had beaten them in a couple of games in a tournament earlier this year. But just for whatever reason, they didn't finish. I talked to Hank Rohn, the head coach of Newberry, and he said against a great team like Sneads, you have to play aggressive. And Newberry did have small leads in the first and second set by 3 to 4 points, but they just couldn't finish it. Sneads would go on a run. They were up 21-14 in one set, and Newberry clawed back, make it 23-20, but just couldn't get over the hump against a good Snead's program, a dynasty, with their 8th consecutive state championship. But, Hank Roan, looking back at the season, they had a 14-game winning streak this year. They beat Jacksonville Bowls. I mentioned they beat Snead. They beat a 7A team in Bartram Trail in a thriller in 5 sets on the road. So they also beat Bell High School. We felt like the winner of the Bell-Newberry game might, come away with a state championship. Newberry actually swept Bell in that region final. So a great season, 23-4 overall for Newberry. Santa Fe also had a nice little run. We also ranked the top 20 high school volleyball teams across 26 counties at the prep zone. And, Newberry's up there. Santa Fe, which had to go to Jacksonville Bishop Kenny. They lost a 5-set thriller, Shane. Bishop Kenny went on to win the state championship. So that just shows you how close that was. And even going a little further south, Trinity Catholic won a state championship. So it was nice to see some of these area teams, make a good run, including a couple that, played in a state championship.
No doubt about it. Well, football is in full force. You're going to have to give us a rundown. So it's so hard to keep up with who's still playing and who had games canceled. I think Newberry they moved to the next round because I believe Trenton had to cancel. I think Hawthorne's still playing. Trinity Catholic down in Ocala is still playing. I think Vanguard is. Just give us a rundown. What's going on?
Yeah, you mentioned it. And getting back to your point about Newberry moving on, Trenton, they tried to piece it together, but due to COVID protocols, they started losing players like dominoes. And it wasn't a situation where they had a bunch of guys that were testing positive. They were around guys that were positive. So, those players started, were being told that they were not going to be able to play due to protocols. And then next thing you know, Bill Wiles on Wednesday said, we got to pull the plug. We've lost most of our players that we're losing are linemen. And at that level, obviously depth is a concern. So, in fact, PK Young, same thing happened to them. They didn't have any positive tests, but due to protocols, they had to cancel their game against Pensacola Catholic. And St. Francis Catholic in Class 2A on Friday, they find out from the Department of Health that same situation. I think they had 26 students that had to be quarantined, and 9 of those were students or football players. And of those 9, most of them were linemen. So St. Francis Catholic had to cancel their games as well. But yeah, you're right. For this area, for the Gainesville area, Hawthorne, they'll play Fort Meade this week. Newberry will play Wildwood. That's the game that we'll broadcast on 106.9. Should be a great matchup. But also Union County will play at Fort White. Bradford's still playing. You mentioned the Vanguard and Trinity Catholic and those schools there in the Ocala area. So we do still have a small representation of area teams playing, we hope, each week. It goes week by week as it has since week 1 of the regular season due to these COVID issues.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of these games. I want to say Buchholz, they've been playing extremely well, scoring a ton of points. I don't know who they have this Friday night. I know they beat Creekside, I think, twice in like 3 or 4 weeks span. Who do they have, and have you been able to see them play this year?
I have. I've seen them play a few times. In fact, I broadcast their game this past Friday night. And here's the interesting thing about Buchholz, Shane. On the first series of their second game against Eastside, they lost their starting quarterback, Jack Hevesy. He went down with an injury, has not played quarterback all season long. Mark Whittemore's son, Creed Whittemore, has stepped in at quarterback, and believe it or not, they've gotten better. They lost their first game of the regular season to Oakley, but since then, they've gone on a nice little run. They've won 7 games in a row, and this past Friday night, it was offense, defense, and special teams that got in on the act. Quan Smith, who has an offer on the table from Michigan, their running back, actually caught 2 touchdown passes from Creed Whittemore in the first quarter. Quan Smith also had a 1-yard touchdown run, and then Matt Clayton blocked a punt. It went out of the end zone for a safety, and before you could blink hardly, it was 21-0 in the first quarter. Buchholz went on to win the game 46-13. Clayton ended up blocking another punt. Matt Clayton is a Wofford commit, but he did have an offer on the table from UAB, but he decided to go where DJ Curtis is going to go. He's also a Wofford commit. But Clayton blocked a punt. Jakari Kelly returned it 5 yards for a touchdown. So they scored again on offense, defense, special teams. Hunter Smith kicked a 36-yard field goal. But Shane, they've got to make the long trek to Navarre The bar is 6-0. This is in the Class 7A state playoffs, by the way. And if Buchholz is fortunate enough to win, they will come home and play a game at Citizens Field the day after Thanksgiving. The only problem is they're probably going to play Niceville, which is currently 8-0 and ranked top 20 in the state of Florida, regardless of classification. But yeah, great season for Mark Whittemore and Buchholz. Again, started slow with the loss to Oakleaf, but they haven't lost since. And, that says something about, the job that Whittemore has done, considering the fact that they lost Hevesy so early in the year.
Yeah, no doubt. Mark does a tremendous job at Buchholz, and this is the third Whittemore boy that he's coached, and they all get their athleticism from their mama, not their dad. I like to give Mark. Yeah, they're all tremendous athletes. Okay, so Buchholz has had a great year. I think another team that's kind of flown under the radar that I think they lost their first game of the year, but won them all since is Newberry. Mm-hmm. Coach Ed Johnson's done a tremendous job. His son's their quarterback, but as you mentioned, they're playing Wildwood, who I think has a dynamic quarterback as well.
Yeah, Wildwood, their quarterback has thrown for he's only an eighth grader too. He's a senior. They have an eighth grader as a backup, but yeah, their senior quarterback has thrown. He's approaching 2,000 yards. He's got 1,800 yards through the air. They're 8-1. Newberry is 8-1, and you're right. I actually broadcast Newberry's first game of the year. They played at Hawthorne, and a game that they led with just under 4 minutes to play in the game before Hawthorne scored the final, the go-ahead touchdown. But heck of a job by Ed Johnson, second season. They went 9-2 last year. Same situation for them as last year, Shane, because last year they lost their opener against Santa Fe. They proceeded to win 9 in a row. They finished 9-2 last year with a playoff appearance. And then this year, as you noted, lost first game to Hawthorne, and they haven't lost since. They've won 8 games in a row. And yeah, Mekhi Johnson, the coach's son, he's going to actually be a better baseball player. He's getting interest from schools like FSU and Cincinnati, Florida Gulf Coast. But, he's really improved throwing the football. They've got a good running back in Kobe DeLima. Last year had over 1,000 yards, 1,400 all-purpose yards. The good news for Newberry is that they've got this game at home, but it still will be a tough matchup. And as you can expect, the further you go in the playoffs, your competition is going to get tougher. But yeah, will be a tough matchup against a Wildwood team that is coached by Jamel Cornelius. And then you've got Jamel Cornelius. And then you've got Cornelius Ingram on the other side, 2 former Gators going head to head on the sidelines.
That's awesome. Refresh your
wait. That's Fort Meade Hawthorne. I'm losing my train of thought here. Fort Meade,
let's get to that. Let's get to that game. Hawthorne is playing Fort Meade.
Hawthorne is playing Fort Meade. Newberry is playing Wildwood.
You got 2 former Gators going at it. How do you see that game? I mean, Cornelius Ingram's done a tremendous job with that program since he's taken over. Do you think they can make a little run here?
This is going to be a tough matchup. Fort Meade is 5-3. They beat Williston 47-0 last week. Hawthorne's had a good season. They've gone 7-2 and probably should be 8-1. They had a lead against Bradford late in the second half, late third quarter, and then Bradford, I think they came back from 18 points down to win that game at home. The other loss was at Zephyr Hill, so it was against a bigger school. That's one thing that CI wanted to do, was step up in competition a little bit this year. But Chaz Mackey, the transfer from North Marion, has thrown for just under 1,000 yards this year, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The thing that makes Hawthorne tough, though, number one, they play good defense, but then on offense, they've got a stable of running backs. Even though Dre Lawrence has only rushed for 543 yards, he's still averaging 5.6 yards per carry. They're 3 of their 4 main guys that carry the football, and I'm including Mackey in there. They're averaging over 5 yards a carry. So they'll play good defense, which will keep them in football games. They've only given up 100 points this year, but I do feel like it will be a tough matchup against a decent Fort Meade team, despite their record at 5-3. But we'll see. The interesting thing is, if Hawthorne wins their game and Newberry wins their game, it will be Newberry and Hawthorne next Friday night for the right to move on to the state semifinals. Now, it may not matter, because standing in the way eventually is Madison County, and Madison County has won 3 straight 1A state titles.
Yeah, they're a powerhouse, no question about it. We're speaking with Mike Ridaught here on the Titan MR hotline. You can follow Mike at theprepzone.com, on Twitter at theprepzone. Also, refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. November is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Mike, let's talk about a couple of the Ocala teams. Usually Vanguard is always a powerhouse, but having not played outside the Marion County, it's been hard to follow and know who's really good down there. Has Vanguard still got a pretty good football team this year?
They do. I think Vanguard, they always seem to be right in the mix in their classification. And another one too, Shane, that we didn't mention is Denellen. They rolled against Eastside. But yeah, you're right. It's hard to gauge just how good these teams are because they have played a county-only schedule. Vanguard right now is sitting at 6-1. Their only loss this season came to Denellen, and it was just a 2-point game, and Denellen scored on the final play of the game to win that game. But, for Vanguard, it will be tough for Vanguard to get out of their or to get to the state semifinals. I think Vanguard will win this week. Outside of that, though, I'm not sure how far. I really do think that we could see maybe even a Trinity Catholic make a little bit of a run. I think Trinity Catholic will win their game this week. But, for Vanguard, I do think that they'll win this week. And then that could set up a big matchup next week as Vanguard gets ready. Well, they're playing Ridgeview out of Orange Park, by the way, this week. But they could possibly play Clay High School next week. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, again, it's hard to gauge just how good they are because they played against county competition until the playoffs when they beat Crystal River last week, 38-0. And I know nothing about Crystal River, to be honest with you. But again, Vanguard just always seems to be in the mix, and let's see what they can do. But Denellen could be waiting for them down the road too.
Yeah, it's a crazy year because it's been hard to keep up with, because it hasn't been a regular season schedule.
It has.
So you don't really know. It's been bizarre. I got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Terry says, Shane, this is for you. Let's go Pascagoula Panthers. It's been a while since they've made it to the third round of the Mississippi State playoffs. So my old high school's in the third round, believe it or not. Mike, we had a text here, and it was from Larry. Larry said, I read somewhere where all the Gator commits are in the playoffs. Can you touch briefly on that?
If you're including the other states, I can't say with 100% certainty that, some of these guys, I know there's one commit that's from Georgia, et cetera. If you thought of it just from a Florida standpoint, you might think, well, that makes sense because all the Florida teams are in the playoffs.
Everybody makes playoffs no matter what this year.
Yeah, well, with the exception, because you had to either opt in or opt out of the playoffs. For example, Miami Columbus, the defending 8A state champion, they opted out of the playoffs. They're not in the playoffs. So we're going to have a new state champion in Class 8A. But to your point, Miami Palmetto, Jason Marshall, who is one of the top cornerbacks in the country, a Gator commit, plays for Miami Palmetto, which I think has a chance now with Columbus out of the way to possibly play in that state championship game. They could play a team like Seminole, which is currently undefeated. Corey Collier also on that team. And also the number 3 player in the country who's headed to Miami, defensive tackle Leonard Taylor, is on that Palmetto team. They've got a really good defense. Brashard Smith, wide receiver, number 24 player in Florida, also on that Miami Palmetto team. But you look at Trevante Rucker, who is committed to Florida for Vanguard. Bryce Langston has offers on the table. He's a heavy Gator lean right now. Trinity Catholic's got, Jake Slaughter, the offensive lineman. They've got 3 defensive Division I offensive linemen, but Slaughter is the guy that's currently committed to Florida. Armwood's still in the playoffs. Charles Montgomery, Desmond Watson, a couple of Gator commits. Jesuit, Mosley, Lake Mary, Marcus Burke of Trinity Christian, Jacksonville. They're still in the state playoffs. So yeah, just kind of looking through this, it looks like a lot of these teams are still in the playoffs. I don't know about the other states, the other Gator commits, but at least here in Florida, it looks like these teams are still playing.
Mike, you and your crew do a tremendous job covering high school sports. I know everyone appreciates it. Who's on the call this week? What game?
Actually, Marty Palm is going to join me on Friday night. We've got
Marvelous
Wildwood
Marty.
that's right. Wildwood at Newberry. 7 o'clock pregame, 7:30 kick on 106.9 FM, also online at imcountryradio.com. And if Newberry wins and Hawthorne wins, we will broadcast that game the following Friday, the 27th. And as we transition also, Shane, into hoops season, our first basketball broadcast is coming up on Tuesday. We got Vanguard at Gainesville. We'll have that one on 106.9 FM. They're actually going to carry a game of the week for us like they did during football season. So pretty excited about what's ahead. We've got all the fall sports other than football behind us. By the way, shout out goes to the Oak Hall girls cross country team. They won their second consecutive state title. Austin Montini on the boys' side won the individual state title. So all in all, pretty good fall sports season. We were able to kind of navigate our way through COVID. Newberry state runners-up, as I mentioned, so in volleyball. So all in all, pretty good year.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, speaking of high school basketball, do you still have districts, or is it all like football? Just everybody's going to make the playoffs and figure it out from there?
No, we're supposed to go back. Everything's supposed to be as it was pre-COVID for basketball season. My concern is, and I've spoken to a couple of coaches about this, Trenton girls basketball, for example, they had to postpone their season opener Tuesday and their game against PK Young. And by the way, shout out to Willie Powers of PK Young girls. He won his 500th game this week. But yeah. Trenton girls also had to cancel their game this coming Monday, the 23rd. They postponed. They're going to play those games, but same situation. Due to COVID, none of their players tested positive, but they lost, I believe it was 3 starters. So they are trying to postpone their basketball games. You know, with football, you got a little bit more flexibility because you got deeper rosters. Heck, you lose 3 or 4 basketball players and you're in trouble. So it's going to, and that's an indoor sport too. We don't know what's going to happen. Weather's going to get cold. I hate to be Debbie Downer here, but I'm just being realistic based on what we've already seen with the Trenton girls basketball team. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can, again, navigate our way through it, and we're going to have a hoop season, but it will be, as for now anyway, the way it has been in the past with districts and so forth.
Mike, real quick, let everybody know how they can check out the Prep Zone.
Yeah, you can check out our website, theprepzone.com. We have posted our regional all classification rankings, our final rankings for volleyball. Ponte Vedra, which ran the table 27-0. They're the number 1 team in the Prep Zone Power Poll. For volleyball, we rank the top 20 teams out of 26 counties. You can also find our first girls basketball rankings. Our boys rankings will be next week at theprepzone.com, and always on Twitter at the Prep Zone and Facebook at the Prep Zone. You can find stuff daily from us there as well.
Awesome stuff, Mike. Appreciate it, my man. Take care, and we'll have you on here talking hoops here pretty soon.
That sounds good. Thanks for the time, Shane. Have a good day.
That's Mike Ridaught from theprepzone.com. We're going to take our final time out of the program. We'll be right back.
Hey, Gator Nation. This is your former head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. Check out our show, Inside the Huddle with Shane Matthews and Steve Russell, every Tuesday during football season on 8:50 a.m. and 98.1 FM WRUF at 10 o'clock a.m.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Pomodoro Cafe, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, PRP Regeneration Specialist, and Dowling Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click the advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to wrap up this Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. I want to thank our man Brent Beaird for joining the program, and also Mike Ridaught from the prepzone.com. Don't forget, tomorrow we got the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, be on the program along with JC. We'll be doing our Peachland Dentistry, JC and the QB weekend picks. And you'll want to hear what the head ball coach has to say about how the season has gone. We'll talk Kyle Trask, Heisman Trophy, all that good stuff. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Be safe, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.